One morning, Alexandra awoke from the peace and comfort of oblivion. As a very model of a modern-day millennial, she reached for a cup of tea. Wait, tea? No, that's not right. She reached for her cell phone, at which point she was subjected to silly people saying questionable things on the internet. But that gave her an idea. I'll make a YouTube video.
I was scrolling on Facebook the other day and I saw several comments talking about the Rose of Jericho. These are wonderful plants, but I keep seeing people having problems with theirs. Every time they come up, I see rows of comments talking about how they grew moldy, or they turned brown, or they rotted, or they started to smell. And it always makes me very sad because they're really easy to care for and they're very wonderful. But they're very unusual as well. And their strangeness, it's part of their appeal, but that also means that proper research must be done into the proper care. Unfortunately, I have seen some inaccurate directions for the care of these. I have 2 Rose of Jericho. My biggest one is about to outgrow her bowl again. They spend most of their time dormant, and you can see here that it almost looks like a dried up tumbleweed. Now, this plant is perfectly happy, perfectly healthy in this dormant state, and they can stay like this for months. They actually need to stay closed most of the time because they are desert plants and they've evolved to exist in a world with very little water. One of the biggest tricks to their care is just to let them be dry like this. They need a minimum of 2 weeks at a time curled up in a ball. Ideally, more like a couple of months. And if they cannot dry out completely, that's where you start to run into the problem of them getting moldy and gross. They also need to stay closed more because it takes a lot of energy for them to open up. And if they're forever opening and closing and opening and closing, they're not going to be healthy. Now, I'm going to put some water in my smaller one and we're going to watch it open up. Now, this footage is sped up to allow us to see it open in a reasonable amount of time. This actually took about 45 minutes to open up completely, and my camera died partway through, thus the sort of awkward transition as I traded things out. And right at the end, you see this beautiful green color that's going to start to come in. A healthy rose should turn a vibrant green. In the wild, when the rains come, that's going to flood the desert. And the floodwaters are very, very active and they move around, so they're always fairly fresh. When you have your Rose of Jericho open, it's very important that you keep their water fresh. I usually submerge mine, but I've known others who will just get the roots wet and get them underwater. Both options will work just fine. The important part is to change out that water every single day. Make sure your plant has fresh water. Now, I have seen some people talk about only using mineral water for these. My personal experience, I've always used just plain old tap water and my plants have been just fine. They're a good green color, they open and close perfectly well, so if you choose to do that, that's up to you. I do not. Now, you may have noticed that I said that you can have your plant open for a maximum of 2 weeks. Also, it needs to stay closed for a minimum of 2 weeks. However, the rule of thumb is really that you want to have it closed at least twice as long as you had it open. And when you go to close it up, you really want to make sure that you get all of the water out. What I'll usually do is I'll tip it out and then I'll come back about an hour or so later and tip it out again. And that allows any fluid that's still in the plant or on the leaves to kind of drain to the bottom. And that way I know that my plant isn't going to get moldy, isn't going to get gross. Okay. I know if you're watching this, you probably want to know about the magical properties of Rose of Jericho. The Rose of Jericho is known as the resurrection plant. This is, of course, because it seems to come back from the dead. In magic, many practitioners will use this to bring something back into their lives, to invite something back. So, as an example, let's say you're looking for a new relationship. You can set your intentions, and then you have your Rose of Jericho open to bring love and romance back to you. Now, it is also specifically useful in bringing back money to you. If you go down to New Orleans, for instance, a lot of the shops there will have a Rose of Jericho somewhere in the shop in a little bowl of water, usually with some coins in the water as well. And this is to help bring business and money to the shop. You can also use a bit of Rose of Jericho water in your spell work, again to help bring things back to you. Thank you, as always, for joining me on Eclexia. I will see you next time.